Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mental Unblock. This is your host, Omar, and this week we host a very special guest. He is special in the sense that he helped myself and my team get started with our show, Mental Unblock. He is also listed in Dubai's top 100 most influential people by Arabian Business. He also helped donate and raise over $1 million to sick kids in Africa. And if that's not enough, he also released his book yesterday, which has become an overnight #1 worldwide seller on Amazon. He is my dear friend, Mr. Spencer Lodge. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being
here. Quite good, that, isn't it? If you get all that out, it's like, am I all those things?
Yes, you are, and you should be very proud.
Thank you.
And thanks for helping us, by the way.
No worries. It's been lots of fun trying to help out, and the small way that I have. You've done it all yourself, really.
Thank you very much. So tell me, the book, congratulations.
Yes!
Is this your first time releasing a book?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how did it go? It's selling quite a lot.
Yeah, we had a goal to get it to #1, but there's a lot that goes into planning that kind of stuff. Not only does your book have to be good, but you've got to make sure that you market the book correctly in the first place as well. But yeah, it's been a journey. I've never released a book before. It's my first book, and it's kind of like, ooh, I'm an author. It's something that I never thought of myself before. I still don't think that I will think of myself as an author, but yeah, I suppose I am.
Well, I want to come back, talk about that later on.
Sure.
How do you actually release a book? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. I've spoken to a lot of friends that were thinking about it, but actually executing that idea, seems a bit difficult. So we want to get some advice from you later on.
Sure.
In the meantime, you've got quite the interesting background, the upbringing. So if you can just share that, I'm familiar with it, but I want to share it with some of our viewers. And I want to focus specifically on the part of your life where you actually had to get out and find a job. You started selling cars. So why don't you take us back to that moment and tell us how you got started with your career?
Okay, so I was a kid that failed at school, basically. I had an attention span of a goldfish, and every class I was the kid that would gaze out of the window wondering what on earth, the lesson was about. I wasn't stimulated at all, pretty much on most subjects at school. So leaving school meant I left with very poor qualifications, much to my parents' disappointment, but my reality. And so I had to go and get some experience, and my mother ran a recruitment consultancy, and so she got me an opportunity to go and sell cars, be a trainee car salesman at a BMW dealership in the UK, which I was very proud of because it gave you a BMW company car. And when you're like 18 years old, it's like, get in! Kind of things are important at 18. But I lasted a month for having a bad attitude.
That's it.
And that was it. I was out of there. And so that didn't work out. And then the next job came along, and I was selling cash registers, the things they have in shops. So I did that for a month, walking up and down the streets in North London. And that was awful as well. Would you like to buy a till? There wasn't much to it, a few brochures. But that whole kind of door knocking thing wasn't really that easy for me to do. And then I got an opportunity to go and train to sell office equipment and work with Rank Xerox and Canon and these big brands, and they put better training together. And that's when I really learned what selling was about and how it worked, and the nuances of being a professional salesperson. But there were people there that were doing well and people there that weren't. Anytime you wanted to, as a kid, to go and ask the successful guys in the office, they were always too busy and weren't prepared to share it with you. So I felt that I'd have to go and spend some time learning myself. And I was one of these guys that became a seminar junkie, and went out there and just went to lots of seminars and tried to learn as much as I possibly could. But as a young person, you're taking that information in. But the problem is it's kind of confusing because different people are saying different things and doing things in different ways. And I suppose if I went to those as a 48-year-old man, as I am now, I'd be able to dissect it. But as an 18 to 20-year-old, that's just too much information to try and process. And so then I had to find some proper mentors, and I went about getting the people that I've now worked with over the years to teach me the stuff that gave me the skills that I needed to use to implement in my business.
Sure. Now, who did you look up to growing up in terms of your parents? Because I know at one point your parents separated. Did that affect you at all when you were growing up? Did it impact you? Because you've actually become very successful today. So I'm just trying to look at the things in your life, in your background that molded you to who you are today. How did that affect you?
Okay, so I think I was 7 when my parents split up, and Dad went bankrupt. And so Mum and Dad had nothing when Dad had gone bankrupt. Dad was my hero. But my dad then pursued work overseas in the oil industry, and at first I didn't go with him. And then there was no internet, no emails. We used to write letters to each other. Yes, people did write letters. And, you know, a letter would take 6 weeks to get there. Wow. And it would take 6 weeks to get back. So I lost a touch a little bit with my dad, but I was watching my mum with nothing struggle, and really struggle, working 2 jobs and having kids at home and having to get home from those jobs and look after her kids and put a roof over us. And that inner drive and determination that she had was something I think that kind of rubbed off on me. I remember when I was a kid, 13 or 14, I had a number of jobs. I'd deliver newspapers. I was collecting glasses and washing them up in a bar. I was selling greetings cards on a market stall. I was putting leaflets underneath the windscreen wipers of cars all over the course of my working week. I was washing cars at the weekend and mowing people's lawns. I was doing as much as I possibly could to make money because it had been instilled into me that they're the things you have to do. And so I think the breakup meant I didn't have a father figure as a young man, but I think my mum was my mum and my dad, and I think that really made a big difference.
Okay. Now, you then ended up in Dubai at one point. When was that?
2005.
5. Okay, so you've been here for quite some time, 13 years roughly?
Yeah.
What brought you to the UAE? How did you end up in Dubai?
So I'd been in financial services for many years, and so I was your financial advisor, one of those people that many people despise here in the UAE, but I was one of those guys many years ago. And I built with 2 other people a successful company, and we bought a company here in Dubai. And I was going through my own divorce and working in Holland, and one of the 3 of us had to come and run this business over here. And I volunteered to do so, and I was the guy that came in. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in financial services. Mm-hmm. Were you making cold calls back then? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a cold caller.
I want to come back and talk to you about this whole cold calling thing that you've been talking about. I watch a lot of your live videos, and really interesting when you talk about you don't have to make cold calls anymore. In fact, you can donate. So I really want to come back and talk about this. Very interesting. All right. So now you're in Dubai. You started financial services. How did that go for you? Because
really well.
It went well. You made a lot of money from that.
Built a big company, became very successful. I mean, I was doing well probably from the age of, well, I became a millionaire at 26, and so my goal was always to get there by 30. And so, I actually had more than £1 million in the bank when I was 28. And these were measurements for me. Not that they should be for anybody else, but they were for me. And I suppose that came from the upbringing I had of us having nothing and everything being measured very carefully. You know, money was very tight. And so what I find is that experience that I had meant that I measured those things, and I call that success. But we built a great company as well along the way. 700 employees all over the world, 70 countries. I mean, the company just mushroomed.
Back up for 1 second. You became a millionaire at the age of 26.
Yeah.
And what happened after? By the way, are you still a millionaire?
Yeah.
I had to ask.
I hope so.
I mean, if you became a millionaire at 26. All right. So, listen, you became a millionaire at 26, and I know you went through some turbulent moments during the time with your company. I think you were exited or you were pushed out from the company. Tell us a little bit more what happened there. Why did you leave the company?
I became extremely successful when I was young, and that success brought an aspect of arrogance to me. I had a really big ego.
But at 26, wouldn't that be normal? I mean, any 26-year-old, if a 26-year-old becomes a millionaire, I think that would happen to most 26-year-olds, right?
I look back now and I regret becoming that person, arrogant, obnoxious, thinking I was above people. I wasn't a very nice person at that stage in my life, and I think that as a business person, I was almost like, we call it Marmite in the UK. You either loved me or you hated me. You loved the way I did things or you hated the way I did things. And when you're running a business and employing hundreds of people, that's not always the best way to be. But in 2012, the guys that I'd built the business with, the CEO of the company, decided that he wanted to go in a different direction to the one that I believe we should go in. And that became the end of a 16-year journey, and a 16-year commitment that had come before anything else in my life. So my wife, my kids, everyone had been sacrificed for that career. And when I lost it,
correct,
you can imagine what happened.
And essentially that happened because of your attitude that you're saying you used to have. Now, it wasn't just that. You actually had a very rough patch within those 24, maybe 48 hours. You also found out that your wife wanted a divorce, I think.
No, so I wasn't. I was with somebody.
Right.
I'd been with for 7 years. I wasn't actually married,
Okay.
but yes, she wanted to part with me. I found that out the next day, and then that afternoon, I also got a call from my surgeon in the UK who told me that my operation on my back had failed, and I needed to have it again, and I'd been in quite a lot of pain with that.
So you lose your partnership, literally. I mean, professional, and the partnership with your significant other, and you also find out that you have to have back surgery. All three of that just kind of came down at you at one moment. Now, I don't want to talk about a lot of this stuff. We'll move on to some happier days, but just to kind of get this information out there to people who watch, to be able to paint a picture of some of the difficulties that people face in life and how they overcome them, I do want to talk about it for a minute. This affected you in a very massive way. I think you kind of sheltered yourself 4 days, you said. You couldn't sleep, and then you took a trip to the UK.
It was, I was paid not to work for 12 months.
Okay.
And being a workaholic, not to work, that was probably the worst thing I ever agreed to, because I couldn't do anything. I just had to sit patiently and wait. And that led me into depression. And that depression then led me into the thoughts of taking my own life and the plan to do it. And I cleared in my mind clearly and calmly what I was going to do. I thought I was of no value because I was asking myself the wrong questions. And that was what my problem was. I'd fallen into that space where anybody who can identify with being depressed can fall into that real, just asking yourself very negative questions. I would say that, my kids have got their mum, they've got their stepfather, he's a great guy, there's enough money for them all, so they don't need to worry about money. What do they need me for? Rather than thinking about it differently. And so I flew home with a plan to do it. And I got to the UK, and my dad...
Do it, being commit suicide?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you say goodbye to your kids or anything?
Yeah, went to say goodbye.
And then what happened?
My dad was at my house.
And he stopped you?
He's never at my house.
Wow.
He lives in Newcastle. He's never at my house.
He wasn't aware of your plan?
He knew something was going on. He sensed it.
Fatherly instinct, maybe?
That's the only description I can possibly give it. And he said to me, go and grab a shower, I'll take you for breakfast. And I'm just, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? He's like, get a shower and then we'll go for breakfast. And we drove down the road and he took me to a clinic in the UK called the Priory, where I met with a psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist, over the course of 5 days, talked me into understanding or educated me on understanding the impact it would have on my kids if I did it. And although it wasn't a turning point in itself, it was the start of the turning point.
Sure. You decided to start your own university now, and you teach people pretty much how to sell. I've actually attended a couple of your gatherings or seminars, and I've seen you speak. And I'll be honest with you, it's very inspirational. I've actually had a few moments where I've been selling most of my life, but there were still a lot of things actually that I picked up from you. So I do want to know when the next one is. I want to know how I can actually consume more of that information, which brings me to a point. You now have all this content online. So for company owners out there who want to get their sales team trained, or for a salesperson who simply wants to get better, where can they go and learn pretty much everything that you've put together?
Well, I've been fortunate to build my profile on social media, so much so that I was in LA this morning and on an adventure race, and there were 3 people came up to me and said, "You're the guy from Facebook." So and lots of people can find me easily out there. But makeithappen.university is the website.
Okay.
Nice and easy. You can go to that. And if companies want to get in touch with us, they can go to the website or go and find me on social media. I'm out there. Spencer Lodge. What a name. Sounds like an old people's home, doesn't it? There's not many people out there called Spencer Lodge.
All right. So tell me now about the cold calling. You said the other day online, tell me what you said about cold calling.
Cold calling is for dinosaurs.
Okay. What does that mean?
That means that cold calling...
It's gone.
It's dead. It's gone. It's illegal. It's illegal in lots of places.
Is it?
Yeah, it's as illegal as other, you wouldn't commit fraud, but you'd cold call, even though they're both illegal. To me, if something is illegal and it's not allowed to be done, otherwise you're going to get a fine, why would you do it? That's because you're stuck in the dark ages, you don't like new practices, you don't follow modern technology, and you're a dinosaur, because that's the only reason.
So what do you do then? I mean, how do you get leads? How do you talk to people? Because, listen, and sorry, I can't help but ask, right?
Sure.
Because this is how I was brought up as a salesperson.
Me too.
You get the yellow book. No yellow book anymore. But you got the yellow book, you flipped through it, you picked up the phone, and you hammered away. 100 calls, you might get one yes, and you just go on that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your suggestion then?
Yeah, but that was at a time when telephones were used as telephones because they couldn't be used as anything but telephones. What does your mobile phone do now?
Wonders.
Absolutely. And
I think it does more things than actual make phone calls, if you want the truth.
The least you want to do is take calls. When your phone rings and the number shows on your phone and you don't recognize the number, do you roll your eyes and think, oh, who's that?
Yeah, to an extent.
Sometimes with the people you do that to as well.
I was going to say, when you call me, maybe. No, I'm kidding.
But the fact is, we don't use our phones
Sure.
to make or receive phone calls as much as we used to because there's other ways of communicating. So don't use it as a phone because nobody wants to receive a cold call. Nobody wants to make a cold call. And there's a gazillion different options that you've got to generate leads. And the first thing you need to do is to get out there and add value. Mm-hmm. So produce content for free in places that you can get an audience watching the value that you bring, whether that's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whether that's LinkedIn, Pinterest, it goes on and on and on. You can post your video content or your content out there to give people an education. I run seminars and webinars. A seminar for 3 hours I'm teaching. I'm not asking for anything of anyone. However, all of those people came to that seminar because they saw an ad on Facebook. So they've driven across the city to come and watch me speak. They're clearly interested in what I've got to say. They've not had a single person phone them. Not one person has called them. But yet they've all turned up. Now, to me, I think you should, if you're going to be a professional salesperson, you should learn to add value first, number one. And number two, work out how you can approach people one-to-many as opposed to one-to-one. Because if you can educate an audience, you've got a better chance of turning that into a value add and a solution-based sale for those people out there.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's talk a little bit more because quite a bit of our following is by aspiring entrepreneurs, and I even had a few people that struggled during their entrepreneurial journey say that they love the show. For aspiring entrepreneurs, what is some of the advice that you would actually give to people, especially when it comes to sales, because you're very passionate about it? And a couple of the entrepreneurs that I actually know personally have been focusing a lot of their energy towards building the foundation, working on technology, and they've complained to me directly about the lack of sales when in fact they don't focus enough on it. What sort of advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
Well, they're in different places, entrepreneurs, because they might be having to raise finance. They might be having to create sales to create revenue. And if you're raising finance, you've still got to sell your project, your idea, your concept to investors. If you're making sales online or offline, you've still got to work out what that sales strategy is and implement that strategy. All of these things are really, really important because if you can't raise the finance, well, your business dies. If you can't get money in the front door for the products or service that you're selling, your business dies. So as far as I'm concerned, a young entrepreneur needs to have these skills. So many of them will go and do an MBA, they'll go and learn accountancy, they'll have these different skills, but none of them have gone to learn how to sell. Yet the first thing that my daughter, when she leaves university, is going to, the first thing she's going to do is a job interview somewhere for someone that she's considering being employed by. Well, that's time to sell yourself, isn't it?
Sure.
So she's going to come out of university with this certificate. And now I hope it's a first. I hope it's honours. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But she's going to come out with this certificate that says she studied for 4 years at a great university. And guess what? She's now qualified to go and find a job in these areas. She'll apply to a job and then she'll sit in front of that person who's taught her how to sell herself.
Right.
Well, thankfully she's got her dad. But really, if she didn't have me, who would teach her?
Right. Let me ask you just a couple other tricky ones. And in fact, I'm going to take an actual case here from a friend of mine who you also follow on Instagram. And I asked this question because I found myself in this position. My friend found himself, and a few other people. But at what point, and this is probably going to be more subjective or personal, at what point do you say, I want to give up a full-time job and pursue what I want to do? When is it that you say, because listen, there's a lot of mixed messages out there, right? Some people say it's okay to have a full-time job to be able to fund what you're working on. A lot of people say if you don't do it full-time, then it's really not a full-time thing. It's simply a part-time. What are your thoughts on that? When should an aspiring entrepreneur decide to be all in and maybe sacrifice on having a steady income and so on?
Okay. An entrepreneur, by definition, is someone who's committed fully to something that they want to build. There's 24 hours in the day. You've got 6 hours you sleep for. That takes down to 18 hours in the day. If you've got no money to build your business, then you need a full-time job to put roof over your head. So you're going to have that full-time job. But if you're working 8 or 9 hours a day and you've got 18 hours, you've got another 9 hours spare. Who's to say when you get home from work of an evening, you can't eat your dinner and then work through the evening on your project?
Okay.
I find a lot of people think that, I want to jump out and I want to stay focused on my business. You can't. If you've got bills to pay and you've got kids in school and stuff, you have to find a way of replacing that income. And if you don't know how to do that, then you better stay with your full-time job and work every night and every weekend on your project. This has to be, for any successful entrepreneur, it's an obsession. But most people aren't successful entrepreneurs. Most people like the idea of being a solopreneur, I would say, more than an entrepreneur. They like the idea of being in charge of their time and their income and stuff like that.
Sure.
Well, that requires an enormous amount of hard work, dedication, and commitment. If you watch Game of Thrones on TV every night, don't even think about being an entrepreneur. If the most important thing for you to do on a Saturday afternoon is to watch your team play, that's the most important thing for you to do, and that comes before anything, then maybe you're not cut out for it. You've got to be up to your neck, committed into it. And if you've got a full-time job, I don't think anyone should stop a full-time job to start a career as an entrepreneur. I think you should get the best paying job you can for 9 hours a day, and don't care if you hate it, and then spend every other moment working as hard as you can until you sleep on your project.
I wanted to ask you another question since you've been in wealth management, finance, and all that stuff. What do you recommend in terms of investment opportunities? Someone who actually has a little bit of money, where should they invest? I know you also have a lot of good relationships with some real estate people, such as Louis Alsop. You do a show with him called The Close. Do you recommend investing in real estate? Do you recommend investing in other avenues, for example? Do you invest your own money since you have a background in it, and where?
Look, most people don't understand enough about the financial markets to sit and try and be a guru in it. Some people say, equities are the things that I follow, and other people are real estate because I understand it, and other people are commodities and all kinds of crazy stuff. There's many different things you can invest your money in nowadays. My advice to everybody would be, make sure you do as much research as is possible to do. You don't take anybody's word for anything. You do the research yourself to make sure you're as educated as yourself on what you're considering to invest in. There will always be opportunities to make money in the markets. There's 5 asset classes: real estate, fixed income currency, bonds, and then commodities and equities. So those 5 asset classes, one of them is always doing well. If you don't know how to find the opportunity in those, then you need to talk to a specialist that can help you with that.
Okay.
Real estate as a market right now here in the UAE is really low. I think it might go a little bit lower, but but how do you know when the bottom is of anything? You don't, but it's really low right now. So that to me means it's a wonderful time to invest in real estate. Okay. I'm not a real estate guy, I've got real estate as part of my portfolio, but I'm not a real estate guy because I understand other things probably better. But my gosh, if gold was at $400 an ounce right now, I'd be buying gold. Okay. If oil was back at $40 or $50, I'd be like, I'm going to get some of that. So I always look for the opportunity when things are going through their cycle and they're not performing very well.
Now, listen, congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Tell us very quickly, how did the idea come about and how did you execute it? I've actually spoken to a few people that want to publish books. They've been talking about it for a few years. How do you start?
You start with a desire to want to share your story.
Sure.
And then if you don't have the capacity to do it yourself, it's great to collaborate and speak to people that have done it before. I had a friend of mine, Nick Pigeon, she wrote a book and it was a labor of love for her. Other people I know that have written books, I've got Heather Wild, a lady I know that she was South CTO. She wrote a book in a week and she took all of the video recordings that she'd done, turned them into the written word, put them into a book, got Amazon, 500 people on Amazon to review the book beforehand. They reviewed it, said it was great, and then she put it onto Amazon. So there are different ways you can do it. How did I do it? I sat and thought that people need to know my story. And what I know is that not everyone learns the same way. If you draw me pictures, diagrams, you'll teach me so much more than if you just talk to me. And so other people learn by reading. They want to read. You know, I can't read the computer screen. I have to print stuff off and read it on the paper. Do you know what I mean by that? So when I get a Kindle in front of my eyes, I'm like, oh, the Kindle's hurting my eyes. Give me the actual book.
Yeah.
I want to feel the book and hold the book.
Sure.
But some people learn a lot by reading, some people by listening, some people by watching. You've got to make sure that you understand that. And I needed a way to take the university and the knowledge that I've got and tell my story and put it into a book so people can sit and read it, and then they can also refer back to it in the future. There's lots of nuggets in there, great ideas and tools that people can use. And so for me, what does it do? The funny thing about books, and I don't think this is right, by the way, is that you become far more credible as an author than not.
Okay, you're right.
There's some really bad books out there.
Sure.
And people are respected because they've written a book.
Sure.
And so my advice to everyone is just because someone's written a book doesn't make them any more credible. It means they've taken time to write a book.
Sure.
All right? They could have spent that time doing something else. They decided to write a book. Most people will tell you when they write a book, they don't make any money out of writing it. Okay, so the benefit is the fact that people see them as an author.
Very good point.
I'm an expert in what I do. I can't teach you. If I can't teach you every way that you can learn, the way that suits you, then, you know, it's no good.
And that's sales. When you say you're an expert at what you do,
yes, I'm an expert in sales. Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell me also about the wonderful initiative that you've had. You helped donate over $1 million to sick children born with HIV in Africa.
Yeah, kids in Africa with HIV.
How did you do that? And what was the drive behind it?
So I grew up in Africa. So I went to live in West Africa when I was a kid, spent time over there with my dad. And so I've got a real detailed understanding of the lives that many people in my experience in West Africa lived. When someone tells you a story, a compelling story that moves you, my sister has Asperger's. And her having Asperger's as a disease, I have got massive amounts of empathy for anybody that deals with autism or Asperger's in any way in their family, because I've experienced it. After experiencing people for many years in West Africa that literally had nothing, to then learn about children with HIV, being born with HIV. And I remember I come from a generation where HIV's kind of like it was found while I was a teenager. And it became this thing where if you ever got HIV, you die. Mm-hmm. And okay, the antiviral drugs and retroviral drugs have been created and developed over the years. But it really moved me to see that kids, I hate it when there's a sense of an unjustness in the world. I don't think it's fair, you know. If their parents made mistakes and made bad decisions, then guess what? That's their responsibility. Mm-hmm. But the kids, they didn't do that.
Sure.
And I committed to doing that. You know, I committed to donating money and in return seeing some growth that came from that. And I further do that with other charitable organisations I work with now, with the crazy adventures that I do that my wife doesn't like me doing, but I love to do.
I've seen you've been climbing mountains lately. You've done some cycling trips from London to Paris. Are these all initiatives to help raise money for different causes?
Yeah, so I try and work with the Dubai Centre for Children with Special Needs.
Okay.
And I like to support them. There's a few other organisations I like to support too. But yeah, when I go climb a mountain, or if I like Kilimanjaro recently, I'm off to Mount Tukbal in Morocco in November. Hopefully Mount Elbrus next year. I cycled London to Paris to Geneva. All this kind of stuff that I do is a selfish way of raising money for charities. It's incredibly selfish because I love doing it. Okay. I love challenging myself and pushing myself. And if I can get people like you to sponsor me, okay, and make a difference, then for me, there's a win-win scenario there. You know, the kids get some more benefit because of what I do, and I get the great experience that I do too. You should come climb a mountain.
I would. I would extend the invitation. I'd love to do it.
Right.
If it serves a good cause.
Can we get an OB team to
I'd be happy to. And this is on camera. I can't get out of it either. So, all right. Now, you know, it's really very inspirational to see that you're doing all this. You've also started your own business. You also find the time to create all of this content that goes online that people get to consume. You've managed to write a book. You're also a father of 2 beautiful children and a beautiful wife who's actually here at the studio. And you're also kayaking. You're wakeboarding. How do you find the time? And I know it's a silly question, but how do you find the time to manage between all this?
Because I get up earlier than anybody else.
You get up, actually, I think you told me, something around 4 or 4:30?
4:30.
Okay. You get up at 4:30 in the morning. How many hours of sleep do you get?
4.5.
That's all? Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't you think that's a bit too extreme?
It's the amount of hours I sleep for.
Okay. So you get up at 4:30, and what do? What's a day for Spencer look like typically?
Get up, take a shower, go typical during the week, go to the gym, take another shower after the gym, have some breakfast, come back, and then go about my business during the day. That's typical. I produce content regularly. Obviously, I have, as you know, my camera team with me and stuff, and so I produce content. I do my Facebook Lives. I love fixing problems. So I understand the problems companies have and individuals have, and help fix those problems within their organizations. My weekend is essentially one day, which is Friday, where I get up early, and rather than go to the gym, I'll go and do a bike ride, or I'll go wakeboarding, I'll do something else. And just by chance this morning, I was at an adventure race in Alain. But yeah, for me, it's get up early, get some exercise done. Doesn't matter what it is. Get some energy in your lungs. Get some blood, the oxygen in your blood circulated, and get fired up for the day. And if you go to the gym, you do that. If I get up and I don't go and do any exercise, I'm kind of slovenly and lazy. Okay, no, that's me. So I need it. But if I got up at 8 o'clock and went to do it, then half my day would be gone. So I need to get up, do the exercise, get my workout, get my shower, get my clothes ready for work, my suit on and stuff. Okay, and then be ready at 7 o'clock for work. And so that's how I operate, and I think I'm better for it.
How do people become a bit better with time? And I'm saying this because I recently really had to discipline myself with making better use of my day. My issue is I probably can't communicate it to others the way you do. I mean, you've got a gift at it. The way you say things are quite compelling. How does one get better control of his day? How does he become more productive in it? What are some of the secrets or the tips or the things that you can look for within your day that can create that inspiration for you to be a bit more dedicated?
Is it not about the questions you ask?
Sorry?
Is it not about the questions you ask?
Sure.
A lot of
like
the
you
time,
did earlier on.
I can't do that. I can't fit that time. And I can't. It's like, don't ask those questions. How can I get more out of my day? What can I do today to get more out of my day? And a lot of people break their diary down into 15-minute chunks of a day. And they put everything into 15-minute slots. So whatever they have to do, okay, it goes into a 15-minute slot to make sure they can get those things done. Some people need to stop wasting time having pointless conversations about pointless things. Some people need to stop wasting time shopping. Some people need to stop wasting time thinking they're busy when they're not. Some people need to stop looking at social media all of the time or staring at the television. There's a load of time that people are spending 4 hours a day on social media.
Yeah, but you're on social media all the time as well.
But that's my job.
Right.
Okay, that's my job.
Okay.
You know, my job is to promote myself on social media. Now, you can say, well, if you tell people not to watch social media, they won't see you. Trust me. Okay, Facebook's got 3 billion people watching it. I'm not going to have that much impact, okay, across people. But, you know, if you find it difficult to manage your time, get up an hour earlier and use that hour more productively. Don't waste time doing stuff that you know really isn't important. Focus on whatever you've got to do today, focus on the things that are the most important things to do and just get them done. Get them done before 10 o'clock. And you'll find actually, get them done before 9. You'll find actually that you free up your thinking. But also give yourself thinking time. Give yourself time in the day to say, right, I'm going to go and sit and think. All right. Then maybe your car journey to and from work, that you turn the radio off and you just sit and genuinely think. It may be you just go and sit yourself somewhere where you think all the things that you need to process, because we need that time as well.
What is it that actually gives you that drive? In other words, what is it that inspires you? What is it that makes Spencer so structured in his life and so driven to be able to achieve so many things? What drives you?
The responses I get from people that I help drive me. The messages I receive, they blow my mind. I'm so overjoyed when I get messages from the people that I work with about the experiences that they've had. So that for me is a big goal, a big part of what makes me happy. But I'm on a mission to talk to every CEO, every managing director, every financial director, every chief technology officer, okay, every HR manager, every quantity surveyor, every physicist, every quantum physicist, every doctor, every dentist, everyone in a professional capacity to stop looking down the end of their nose at salespeople and start to understand that their business relies on sales. To show some damn respect to these people that get up every day, and a lot of them without a salary, and go and pace the streets trying to find ways to add value to companies. So that's kind of what really drives me. And everything else really comes secondary to that.
Excellent. What's next for Spencer Lodge?
Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, you've just released the book.
Do you know what? I've got another book in me that I'm thinking about right now.
What is this one about?
The first book, Making It Happen, was about my story and about how you become a professional salesperson. My next book, I want to talk far more about the digital revolution and how it's impacted salespeople that have been smart and what salespeople can do to use it to their advantage.
Okay.
So that's something that I'll get on and do fairly soon.
When can we expect that?
Oh, gosh. The book came out yesterday, for goodness sake. I already got ideas, but I think that'll take a while. And then in terms of Make It Happen, I want to get 1 million students through the university. That's an objective I have over the next 36 months. And so that's really my goal with the university. And I just really want, and even if it's not me, I really want companies to take professional training seriously. And I'll do whatever I can to help educate and inspire people so that they see that as a serious responsibility and they do something about it, whether that's with me or anybody else. So that's my march all of the time. That's kind of like where I go, where I head. It's what gets me out of bed every day, what fires me up. And from that first date when I met a girl in a wine bar in the city of London, and I said to her, "What do you do for a living?" And she said, "I'm the receptionist at a law firm." And I went, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting. What law firm?" And she tells me, I'm like, "Oh, what a great company." And she says, "What do you do?" And I say, "I sell photocopiers." And she went, "Oh, really?" From that moment, that receptionist thinking that I was the lowest of the low had such a profound impact on me that I don't want any other salesman to ever experience that themselves.
Why should, and I say this for the young people who are maybe looking for their career break or looking to get into something specific, why should anyone get into sales?
I was with a guy called Jeff Singer the lunchtime today, and Jeff Singer was the head of DIFC here in Dubai. Yeah. He's now with the University of Sharjah. And he was talking to me about, and he's got a resume, a CV that's just to die for. Yeah, it's kind of like the who's who of great organisations to work for, and how he's worked his way up. But for a very, very successful guy in academia as well. He said to me, "The best job I ever had was when I was a salesman." Salespeople have the most fun, don't they? So many people leave university and they go into jobs that they end up just living.
Sure.
And 80% of people go to work every day knowing that they've got to go to work for the money and they don't really enjoy what they're doing. Now, you started this, and this was something that you were passionate about. And look at where it's taken you because you're actually passionate about it. Look at how you network people because you're passionate about it.
Sure.
Because you're passionate about it, you're going to take this. I'm absolutely convinced you're going to take this to dizzying heights because it's in you. It's your why. Young people leaving university need to find their why. Jeff Singer said he had so much fun when he was selling. I had so much fun as a salesperson, and I still have so much fun every day helping people become better salespeople. So I think that, for me, is the thing.
Excellent. Well, Spencer, honestly, I could sit here and talk to you forever. But I'll ask you, would you come for a part 2? Because I'm sure a lot of the people watching and listening would want to know more. Would you come join us for a part 2 sometime?
Go on then.
Thank you very much for being here, Spencer. There you have it, guys. A wonderful interview with a very good friend of mine, Spencer Lodge. Make sure you get a copy of his book available now on Amazon, and make sure you tune in for the next episode. Until then, this is your host, Omar, signing off. See you next time.